Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine spending like 3 full weeks and honestly tens of thousands of dollars in senior architect salaries just arguing in a stuffy conference room over the definition of the word customer.
Yeah, which sounds absurd to most people, but in the enterprise data world, this happens literally every single day.
Right. Teams just get completely paralyzed before a single line of code is ever even written. So today, for you listening, we are zeroing in on a tool that claims it can end that exact 3-week argument in about, well, 15 minutes.
Which is a massive claim. And frankly, given that it's late June 2026 and we are just swimming in an absolute ocean of AI hype, skepticism is really the only rational starting point here.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, every vendor on the planet right now is slapping AI powered on their homepage, promising that if you just install their chatbot, all your data silos will magically dissolve.
Exactly, which is exactly why we're putting this specific tool under the microscope. We're looking at a recent article from datapro.news by Samuel Williams, combined with the beta release documentation from a company called Ignition.
Right, for their IRiS assistant.
Yes, the IRiS assistant. Our mission for this deep dive is to basically dissect this. Does IRiS actually solve the most notoriously stubborn problem in data engineering, or is it just adding more, probabilistic noise to an already chaotic system?
Yeah, and that's the big question, because for engineers, especially those who are deep in the Microsoft Azure and Fabric ecosystems, the marketing promises have just completely outpaced the actual operating models for a long time now.
They absolutely have.
To really understand why this IRiS beta release is turning so many heads, we kind of have to look at the context of the last few years. Moving data, like simply landing it from a source into a target, has become trivial.
It's basically a solved problem at this point.
Exactly. Platforms like Microsoft Fabric give organizations this beautiful, coherent story for, one lake, delta tables, unified storage.
Yeah.
The structural pipes are fantastic.
Right.
But making the data flowing through those pipes actually trustworthy, that remains incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So IRiS Assistant is targeting that gritty, deeply unglamorous foundational work that happens, well, long before a CEO ever looks at a pretty dashboard.
Right. And before we even touch the AI side of things, we really need to talk about the physical reality of these data platforms. Let's talk about the lakehouse architecture.
Ah, yes, the famous lakehouse.
The industry loves to celebrate this clean, 3-tiered structure, right? You've got the bronze layer, the silver layer, and the gold layer. So bronze is raw data, silver is refined and filtered, and gold is ready for business intelligence. It sounds so incredibly orderly on paper.
It implies this frictionless automated purification process. But anyone who has actually built a large-scale data platform knows that the silver layer is an absolute trap.
A total trap.
It is basically the graveyard of failed data initiatives.
I always try to explain data engineering to people outside the industry by comparing it to building a massive residential subdivision.
Fair, I like this.
Getting data into that bronze layer is essentially just backing up a fleet of dump trucks and dropping massive tangled piles of raw lumber, PVC pipes, and bricks onto an empty dirt lot.
Yeah, sure, you have the materials, but you definitely can't live in it.
Exactly. The silver layer is the framing and the plumbing. It's the building code.
And that is exactly where the house usually collapses. The silver layer is where you are suddenly forced to resolve the ugly reality of your business.
Because the dump trucks didn't just drop off clean lumber.
No, they dropped off duplicate customers, conflicting product hierarchies from 3 different corporate acquisitions, missing timestamps, and just completely ambiguous reference data.
Theory suddenly needs a very, very messy reality.
Precisely. And in highly regulated industries, think banking, healthcare, insurance, you can't just guess your way through that mess. You need a rigorous methodology. And this is where Data Vault 2.1 comes into the picture. Data Vault basically forces you to strictly separate 3 distinct concepts in your data: identity, relationships, and descriptive history.
Okay, let's unpack this for the listener a bit, because Data Vault introduces a lot of heavy terminology. We are talking about hubs, links, and satellites.
Yeah, let's use a tangible example to explain how these work. Let's say you go to a store and buy a pair of shoes.
Okay.
In a Data Vault model, the hub stabilizes the core business identity. So you are a hub. The shoe is a separate hub.
Got it. I'm a hub. The shoe is a hub.
Right. Then the link captures the relationship between those identities. So in this case, the purchase transaction connecting you to the shoe. And finally, the satellite preserves the context over time.
Okay, so the satellite answers the descriptive question.
Exactly. What was the price of the shoe at the exact moment you bought it? What was your address that day?
Wait, let me stop you there because this is where those conference room arguments start. What if I split the payment?
Oh, here we go.
Right. What if I use a gift card for half the purchase and a credit card for the rest? Is the payment method its own separate hub, or is it just a descriptive satellite attached to the purchase link?
And boom, you've just triggered a 3-week delay in the project.
Exactly.
That exact debate is why Data Vault is so painful to implement. It is an incredibly powerful architectural building code, but it is super metadata heavy and requires intense human judgment to model correctly.
It's not just plugging things in.
No. Every single time a new data source is added, senior data architects have to handcraft the analysis, map it all out, and then painstakingly write the repetitive SQL code to generate those hubs, links, and satellites.
Which brings us right back to the core bottleneck. The roadblock isn't writing the code. The roadblock is the phase 0 work.
Exactly.
It's the heavy cognitive lifting required to translate a messy source database into a pristine data vault model.
Yes. And this is exactly what Ignition's IRiS Assistant claims to solve. They aren't just positioning it as a tool that spits out Python scripts.
Right.
They are positioning it as a conversational, AI-assisted entry point, specifically engineered for Data Vault design. They outline a workflow in the documentation called 4 phases. 1, conversation.
Let's walk through those phases because I want to see how this actually works under the hood. So phase 1 is profile and understand. The user connects their source data and IRiS reads the metadata.
Right.
But hold on, how is it actually profiling? Like, is it just looking for a column named customer_ID and assuming, oh, that's the primary key?
Well, if it did that, it would honestly be no better than the tools we had a decade ago.
Yeah.
According to the beta docs, IRiS actively profiles the data variance. It looks at the actual contents of the columns.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so if it sees that a column is, say, 99% unique, but occasionally has repeating values, it flags that anomaly. It asks the human clarifying questions grounded in the mathematical reality of the data it just scanned, rather than just relying on generic theoretical templates.
So it's basically walking the dirt lot and saying, hey, half of this lumber is rotten. What do you actually want me to do with it?
That's a great way to look at it. So once it understands the landscape, it moves to phase 2, which is business identifier confirmation.
Okay.
Here, IRiS proposes candidate keys for the hubs. And crucially, it visibly displays its reasoning to the user. The human engineer then has to explicitly accept, reject, or modify that proposal.
Got it. And then we hit phase 3, which they call model proposal. This is where the tool detects complex data vault patterns.
Right.
The sources mentioned it handles things like multi-active records and hierarchical patterns. Can you explain what those actually look like in the real world?
Let's take multi-active records first. This is a classic nightmare scenario for a data engineer. Imagine a single customer who has 3 different valid active addresses in the system at the exact same time.
Right, like a billing address, a shipping address, and maybe a seasonal vacation home.
Exactly. A basic system just panics trying to find the single true address. A multi-active satellite in Data Vault is designed to handle multiple simultaneous truths, but it's very tricky to code.
Yeah, I can imagine.
IRiS detects that pattern in the source data and automatically proposes the correct multi-active integration model.
Oh, wow. And what about a hierarchical pattern?
Think of a massive corporate structure.
Yeah.
You know, a parent company owns a subsidiary which owns another subsidiary. Mapping that parent-child relationship recursively is notoriously difficult.
Right.
IRiS spots the self-referencing data and maps it out for the user to review.
All right, and that leads directly to phase 4, output and handoff. So once the human confirms the model, IRiS generates the exact metadata files needed for code generation and lands them directly into the version control repository.
Yes. The conversation you just had literally becomes the implementation artifact.
It collapses weeks of mapping documents, huge Excel spreadsheets, and Jira tickets into one fluid conversational motion.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm not buying that entirely without pushing back a little.
Fair enough.
If I'm looking at the AI landscape today, my developers already have access to off-the-shelf large language models. Generic AI can already write SQL. If I give it my database schema, it can inspect the tables.
True.
So why couldn't a smart engineering team just use a standard enterprise-approved chatbot to do this exact same thing? Like, why pay for a highly specialized tool?
It is the most common question executives ask right now. And the datapro.news article highlights a massive differentiator here. Generic AI completely lacks integration guardrails.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you use a standard LLM to map a table on Monday and then ask it to map a different table on Friday, it basically has amnesia.
Oh, right.
It has no idea what decisions your team made 4 days ago. It doesn't know your organization's specific naming conventions or your overarching modeling standards.
So a generic AI might build me a perfectly functional door for my house, but it doesn't know that my house was built using metric measurements, and it built the door in imperial. It won't actually fit the frame.
That is the perfect analogy. So IRiS solves this imperial versus metric problem through a feature called model memory.
Model memory.
Yeah. Every time you bring a new source table into the conversation, IRiS actively cross-references it against the organization's existing models and previously established business identifiers.
Yeah.
It actively blocks schema drift.
So it's functioning almost like an automated building inspector, making sure the new work actually complies with the existing code.
Exactly. And while you are having this design conversation, IRiS is working in the background to build an ontology.
Okay, let's clarify ontology for the listener, because that word gets thrown around a lot. It is not just a glossary or a dictionary, right?
Oh, far from it. A dictionary just gives you definitions. An ontology is a structured, machine-readable web of relationships. Yep. It tells the system not just what a customer is, but how a customer relates to a product, how a product relates to a region, and what rules govern all those relationships. By building this ontology in the background, IRiS is capturing the structural meaning of the business. That's the exact context that your broader enterprise AI stack will need down the road to answer complex analytical questions without hallucinating.
Right.
A generic chatbot simply cannot maintain that kind of architectural coherence across a massive enterprise timeline.
That makes total sense. But a clever memory-enabled AI is completely useless if it violates a large organization's strict security or procurement rules.
Absolutely.
We have to pivot to the enterprise reality check here, because if I go to my chief information security officer and say, hey, I'm going to let this third-party AI rummage through all of our raw, unmasked customer data, they are going to have an absolute panic attack.
And they should. That is a massive data breach waiting to happen.
Right.
But the deployment realities detailed in Addiction's beta documentation are what really elevate IRiS from just a cool proof of concept into a viable enterprise contender. IRiS Assistant is deployed as a self-hosted application on a dedicated Azure virtual machine.
Oh.
And it sits entirely within the customer's own Azure subscription.
Meaning the data literally never leaves the customer's secure network boundary.
Correct. It connects live to Microsoft Fabric and Snowflake, with Databricks connectivity listed on the roadmap.
Okay.
But here's the crucial part for that panic CISO you mentioned. Organizations have a choice of which AI provider powers the reasoning engine.
So they aren't locked in.
No. They can use Anthropic's Claude models, or if organizational policy strictly forbids external API calls, they can route everything internally through Azure AI Foundry. It stays entirely within the Microsoft ecosystem they've already vetted and approved.
That is huge. But let's talk about the human element, though, because whenever tools like this are deployed, there is immediate anxiety among the engineering staff.
Always.
Does this tool just bypass the human data architects, make a bunch of probabilistic guesses, and automatically push that code into the production environment?
The sources emphasize that the core philosophy of IRiS is acceleration, not replacement. It is designed to handle the repeatable mechanical pattern recognition, but it intentionally forces human-controlled checkpoints. The system physically cannot auto-approve business identifiers or finalize a model.
So a human architect still has to look at the screen and click, yes, this reflects our business reality.
Exactly.
And what happens when the human disagrees with the AI?
That is where it gets really interesting. When a human overrides the AI's suggestion, IRiS captures that exact human decision and the reasoning behind it and saves it as governance metadata.
Oh, that's clever.
It effectively codifies human judgment into the platform's memory.
We actually have a tangible, real-world example of this acceleration in the sources. Stephen Meller, the head of data and architecture at Resimac, which is a large Australian non-bank lender, shared some specific metrics from their beta usage.
Yeah, those numbers were wild.
Right. By utilizing this AI-assisted workflow, they reported 4.5 times faster delivery, a 65% reduction in engineering effort, and the ability to deliver new data sources to their lakehouse in under 15 minutes.
Let's really think about what a 65% reduction in engineering effort actually means.
Yeah.
That isn't just shaving a few hours off a sprint. That represents weeks of senior architects not manually typing out SQL joins. It means they aren't manually updating Excel mapping documents or tracing lineage through undocumented legacy systems.
They aren't spending 3 weeks arguing about how to structure a link table for a split payment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By removing the mechanical toil, you free up their cognitive load to focus on the edge cases and the actual business logic that creates value.
They are actually building the house.
Yes.
But, as impressive as Resumac's metrics are, we know this industry. Data platforms are absolutely rife with hype cycles that overpromise and underdeliver.
Always.
We need to zoom out and look at the risks. Samuel Williams, in his datapro.news article, was fairly cautious, wasn't he?
He was, and he highlighted a very dangerous trap. He warned about the creation of automated technical debt.
Explain how an AI creates technical debt.
Okay, imagine an overworked, rushing data engineer who is just trying to close out their JIRA tickets for the week.
We've all been there.
Right. IRiS pops up and suggests a model. The AI, confidently but incorrectly, assumes that a billing address and a shipping address are the exact same hub identity, based on some fuzzy pattern matching.
Oh, no.
The rushing engineer blindly clicks approve without thinking critically.
And boom.
IRiS instantly generates beautifully formatted, syntactically perfect code that hard-codes a fundamental misunderstanding of the business into the silver layer.
Oh, wow. And because it's the silver layer, the foundation, every dashboard, every marketing campaign, and every machine learning model downstream is now inheriting that flawed logic.
Exactly. And fixing a fundamental architectural flaw after the roof is already on the house is exponentially more expensive than catching it on the blueprint.
Definitely.
Williams emphasizes that enterprise trust still relies entirely on source governance and human accountability. He notes that practitioners certified by the Data Management Association will immediately recognize this. You can use technology to accelerate how fast you capture metadata, but you cannot outsource your organizational accountability to a large language model.
It's basically the classic data contract problem.
Yes.
A data contract is an agreement between the software engineers who produce the data and the data engineers who consume it. The AI can help translate that contract, but the humans still have to actually sign it.
Precisely. And IRiS isn't operating in a vacuum here either. If we look at the broader market, we are seeing a massive shift.
Right. The convergence of metadata, automation, and AI is becoming the new industry baseline.
Exactly.
What are the other players doing right now?
Well, the datapro.news piece points out that established competitors like VaultSpeed are actively exploring agentic workflows.
Real quick, agentic workflows.
That's where AI agents don't just chat with humans. They autonomously trigger other specialized AI agents to execute multi-step tasks without any human intervention.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Meanwhile, tools like Data Vault Builder are embedding their own AI-oriented capabilities. And, of course, framework tools like dbt remain a massive force for teams that prefer Git-native development.
Meaning they want to write, test, and version control their data models exactly the same way software engineers manage application code.
Exactly.
So the whole industry is essentially racing toward AI automation. What makes IRiS Assistant significant right now in June 2026?
It's significant because it is bringing this highly specific, conversationally driven data vault automation directly into the Microsoft Azure and Fabric ecosystem.
Right.
And it's doing it precisely at the moment when massive enterprises are rethinking their entire integration strategy around one lake.
So for you listening, especially if you are an enterprise architect, a lead engineer, or just someone tasked with modernizing a really messy data platform, what is the actionable advice here?
Yeah, how do you test if this is a game changer or just a risk generator?
Exactly. The consensus from our sources is really clear. Do not dismiss this as just another AI chatbot, but absolutely do not trust it blindly out of the box. You need a structured pilot.
And that pilot needs to be designed to stress test the hardest, ugliest parts of your reality. Do not feed it a clean theoretical data set.
Right. Give it the absolute worst lumber on the lot.
Yes.
Take a real, messy, multi-source domain from your business. See how the assistant handles the profiling and that critical first-pass modeling, but don't stop at the chat window.
No, push the generated metadata through your CI/CD pipelines.
Test the physical code it actually generates. See how it impacts your Fabric compute capacity. Like, is it generating efficient SQL or just bloated queries?
Exactly.
Take the business keys the AI suggests and validate them with the actual human domain owners. The ultimate goal of the pilot is to prove one specific hypothesis. Does this tool actively reduce your engineering friction without forcing you to sacrifice architectural control?
Because if it merely hides the complexity of your data behind a sleek chat interface, it is a massive liability. But if it genuinely captures the why behind your modeling decisions
Mm.
and makes those decisions transparent and auditable, well, it becomes a phenomenal asset.
The biggest takeaway from our deep dive today is that we are witnessing a fundamental shift in where the friction lies in enterprise data.
Yeah.
The hardest part of modern data engineering is no longer moving data from point A to point B. I mean, we have incredibly fast, cheap pipes for that now. The hardest part is proving that the data flowing through those pipes actually means what the enterprise says it means.
Completely agree.
The launch of IRiS Assistant is a really strong signal that AI is finally maturing enough to tackle the gritty semantic design phase of data management, rather than just acting as a glorified syntax checker.
It's the transition from just writing code to actually capturing meaning. But, this raises a fascinating, perhaps slightly unsettling philosophical question that I think every data professional needs to deeply consider as we look toward the end of the decade.
Okay, lay it on us.
We talked a lot today about model memory, the way this system learns the history, the naming conventions, and the complex relationships of an organization's data by silently observing thousands of human overrides and decisions.
Right, it's building that ontology in the background.
Exactly. If tools like IRiS eventually learn to perfectly map all that context, if they internalize the reasoning behind every exception, every split payment, and every multi-active address,
Yeah.
who will ultimately hold the true understanding of the business 10 years from now? Will it be the human data architects who, let's be honest, cycle in and out of the company every few years? Or will it be the machine's model memory?
Wow, yeah. Are we just building a helpful assistant to write our SQL, or are we slowly transferring the institutional knowledge of the entire enterprise into a permanent machine state?
Exactly.
That is definitely something to chew on the next time you are sitting in a conference room mapping out a hub and a link.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the evolving world of enterprise data. Keep questioning the information and the models around you, and we'll catch you next time.